is that with the previous cohort, the, the, the you guys and the companies that you guys are designing in the previous cohort, they found it really helpful to link it back to the Sustainable Development Goals, or what's called the SDGs. So I wanted to put a screenshot of that to remind you that you could absolutely do this, and I'm actually going to give you some tools to link your company and its impact to the SDGs. So of course, in the other purposes of measurement are also there besides measuring your impact, and that is to actually use it for improving your operations and your strategy. So don't think of impact measurement just to provide accountability to your stakeholders and to your funders, right? But also think about it as this is an opportunity to collect monitoring data, to collect performance data that I can make changes into my operations in real time. This is also an opportunity to share lessons back with the global community based on the insights that you're gaining. And it can also most definitely be used to track unintended negative impacts. So think of measurement not just for accountability, but also for improving your operations and using data to make decision making evidence-based, right? And there is a framework called the Lean Research Framework, which comes out of the MIT D Lab. And I wanted to share the framework at the very upfront of this presentation to give you a way to think about how you should measure anything that you want to measure, right? Whether it's impact or whether it's your business goals, whatnot. We use the 4R framework, which is you want to right size your data collection. So you do not want to collect unnecessary data. You should have upfront what your research questions are, especially around impact, so that you can make sure you are not wasting resources. The other R is you want to be respectful to all your stakeholders, including to your customers, right? So respectful is in addition to doing no harm, especially any of you who are going to be working with low income customers, you want to make sure that you are not burdening them with data collection requests and whatnot. With respect to rigor, of course, you want your data to be rigorous. You want the methods to be rigorous because you want to be able to trust your data to give you those insights. And then the last R is for relevance. So you want to make sure that everything that you do is relevant to your context. And so I'm telling you very lightly what the 4 Rs are. There's a lot of resources available at I put it down in the source. It's dlabmit.edu Lean Research. They give you questions that you can think about to address the 4 Rs, and that's a really great resource. All right, so this is the exciting part of the presentation. How do you actually go about doing your impact measurement? I use the theory of change way. There are people who use log frames, which is very similar to theory of change, but I personally love the theory of change framework. So you start over there. That's your step one. It gives you the foundation on which to build all your other steps. That's why having a theory of change that you trust is really important. Then after that, you want to develop your indicators, again, because you want to make sure you're right sizing your data collection and you're making it really relevant. You want to map your indicators to your theory of change. And I'm going to explain theory of change in detail in a second. I just want to lay out the steps first. Then you want to lay out your data collection processes, develop your tools. The step 5 is analyze your data, and then step 6 is practice adaptive management, right? So you want to adapt your operations and strategies according to the data that you get in real time. And then of course, you also want to measure your impact and share that with your stakeholders. So those are the 6 steps. Let's dive into each one in more detail. So your theory of change is, and that's the exercise we're going to do today. So hopefully with a little bit of practice, you'll start getting a real strong hang of it. A theory of change, the way we look at it, and I've done this with large MNCs to small social enterprises, is just sitting down and understanding, okay, what are your activities that are going to lead to certain outputs, And those outputs are going to lead to certain outcomes. And outcomes are in development speak, they're defined as any changes in behavior, skills, knowledge, and attitude. And those outcomes will ultimately contribute to your impact, right? And this is where I want to tie it back to the SDGs again, is your SDG statements around like SDG 1, right, which is reduce poverty, or SDG, um, I don't know the SDGs by heart, so I'll stop over there. But those are your high level impacts that you put at the very topmost level in your theory of change. And then you also always have to think about the assumptions as well as the risks that you are holding in your head that you want to put down in paper and also measure. So the theory of change, think about it as a communication asset that you can share with your various stakeholders to ensure that everybody has a similar understanding of the problem and of the potential solution that you're laying out to address that problem, right? And I think I know I'm using, forget think, I know I'm using a lot of development language. It's because that's the way I'm trained. I don't have an MBA. I practice measurement with businesses, and that's something I have realized I need to learn is how to speak in language that even business folks understand. So if there's anything you don't follow, especially once the presentation is over, just let me know and I will try and translate it into business speak, because I know I'm using a lot of development language and words that are not that familiar with you guys. So that's your theory of change. It's a framework that will help you lay out then what your indicators are. So step two, when I say multidimensional indicators, we think of poverty reduction not only as improvement in economic well-being, which is your typical increase in income or increase in credit and risk, but it is also capability well-being. So any changes in physical health, mental health, aspirations for the future, self-efficacy, self-confidence, which are critical indicators, especially when you're working with low-income customers or producers or distributors or employees. Um, and then the third way we look at poverty reduction is called relationship well-being. So over there, we look at indicators like relationship with your spouse, relationship with your children. And this really gets to the gender dynamics that you will often find in low and middle income markets. There is definitely something around that you need to keep in mind, especially if you, again, work with low income stakeholders. And so, sorry, I have this nagging cough. Uh, the also any indicators around environment as we put them into relationship well-being. So think about indicators to measure your impact not only in terms of economic well-being but also capability well-being and relationship well-being. And what we often do with our businesses is that we actually take a mix of social and business indicators to kind of understand better what their operational challenges are, what kind of impact indicators can give them potential solutions to meeting operational challenges as well. So, for example, in one of our companies that we worked with in Mexico City, we found that by improving self-efficacy of the women employees, you could actually increase retention rates. Because one of their major challenges was that they had a turnover rate of 70%. So how can you have these women stay on longer? So we found that there was a causal linkage between self-efficacy and retention. And so how do you improve self-efficacy? It was through life skills training. So that's what we mean by mixing up social and business indicators. Step three is about your data collection processes. The most important point over here is that you want to ensure that your data collection processes are right-sized to the resources that you have. So that means often you already have existing touch points with your stakeholders, so build in your data collection process right over there. You also want to lay out an analysis plan before you start collecting data. So again, that's a way to ensure that you're right sizing what data you collect. Because if it's not part of your analysis plan, you do not want to collect that data. Step four is about setting up your data collection tools. Often you can, you'll find people doing it by paper. Now everyone's doing it by tablets. That's good too. Some people use SMS surveys as well. The key point over here is whatever you do, make sure you pre-test your tools which means at a minimum test the survey or test whatever you're using. Um, Test it with at least 12 people that are representative of the stakeholders that you are going to collect data from. And pre-testing, there are resources available around cognitive interviewing methodology, and we can talk about that a little bit later as well. Step 5 is analyzing your data to information, and then step 6 is actually using that. And a lot of step 5 and 6 is um, really understanding what data you're getting, what insights you're getting, and how you can actually use that. It's a space called adaptive management in development speak. There is again a lot of information out there online about it. Yeah, I will keep moving. So I'm not going to go through this slide, but this is a way about how I'm just giving you a little bit of a structure about how you can start thinking about impact data to be used for decision making around improving operations as well. But we're not going to do this exercise. We're actually going to, whoops, sorry, I'm in a really fancy office where the light like closes off if you don't wave.